Each and every year, thousands of people go missing in national parks all over the country. Many of those who vanish are never found and disappear under the strangest of circumstances. There are thousands of cases like these, and many simply go under the radar due to limited or withheld information. Join me as I count down 10 more of the strangest national park disappearances. Number 10. On January 31st, 2015, 21-year-old geology student Drake Kramer of San Antonio, Texas disappeared while hiking through Grand Canyon National Park. Search and rescue teams spent weeks combing through 285 square miles of the park. Teams of searchers have walked miles along the canyon rim, searched heavily forested areas, utilized dog teams, performed several over-the-rim technical searches, and conducted multiple aerial reconnaissance missions to support ground searchers. Despite the hundreds involved in the search and rescue effort, no trace of him was ever found. Authorities did find Kramer's car at the Bright Angel Lodge where he had previously checked out. It was reported that he was last seen at the southern rim of the park by a group of tourists. It was not unusual for Kramer to go hiking by his lonesome, and those who knew him state that he was a pretty good experienced hiker and are puzzled by his disappearance. Number 9. A 66-year-old hiker named Jerry Largey of Brentwood, Tennessee, who goes by the trail name Inchworm, was last seen early in the morning of July 22, 2013, while hiking on the Appalachian Trail in Maine. She planned to hike to the Spalding Lean-To region about 8 miles north from the Mount Abram Township, but she never arrived. She was expected to meet up with her husband, George Largey, later on that day. The Warden Service conducted multiple searches for Largey that extended several months following her disappearance, but searchers failed to locate any trace of her. Family and friends of Jerry said she was a very experienced hiker and in great health. She was well equipped for the hike and conditions were perfect that day. Jerry is now one of hundreds of people that disappear in the Maine wilderness each year, with a large portion that are never found. Number 8. In July 2015, 2-year-old Deor Coons Jr. vanished under the nose of his family while camping at Timber Creek Campground in Leodore, Idaho. For weeks, county police and park rangers scoured the rugged terrain surrounding the remote campground near the small town of Leodore. They used sonar imaging equipment to probe a nearby reservoir, searched a wolf den, and Deor's parents volunteered to take polygraph tests. Helicopters, divers, scent dogs, cadaver dogs, horses, ATVs, and over 300 people were used in the search and rescue effort. Deor was reported missing by his mother at 2:30 p.m. on July 10th. Both parents said they left their son with his great-grandfather and a friend of their great-grandfather while they went off to explore. The great-grandfather believed the boy was with his parents, police stated. Many of those involved in the search were baffled by the strange disappearance. Number 7. On July 25, 1981, 14-year-old Stacy Ayres rode into an area of Yosemite National Park with her father and 6 others on horseback, where they reached a small cluster of cabins and planned to rest up overnight there. The group tied the horses, and some of them went inside to the cabins to freshen up. After getting changed into different clothes, Stacy left her cabin with the intention of photographing a nearby lake. She asked her dad if he wanted to go with her, but he declined, and instead a 72-year-old man from the group decided to go with her instead. After a bit, the older man felt tired and sat down to rest. They all watched as Stacy went on a little further toward the lake and eventually went behind a couple trees and veered out of sight. After a few moments, when she didn't return, the elderly gentleman was a little worried and gathered the others for a search. Not long after, they found Stacy's lens cap to her camera just a little way into the woodland, but nothing else. Over the next few days, hundreds of searchers, National Guard and local volunteers searched the area but never found a trace of Stacy. Number 6. On May 28, 1966, 6-year-old Larry Jeffrey, who was vacationing with his family, walked away from his brother near Mount Charleston in Nevada and never returned. The local authorities set out on a 5-day search made up of a few hundred men. There were no large animals in the area or car access. So if Larry wasn't eaten up by a predator or snatched up by a kidnapper, then just what happened to him? That remains a mystery today, as he was never found with no solid explanation for his disappearance. It's as if he simply vanished into thin air. Number 5. On May 27, 1999, 69-year-old Carl Landers disappeared on Mount Shasta while hiking with friends. They were camping at a location called 50/50, a place on the mountain where climbers can stop and rest before reaching the summit. According to his friends, Carl had decided to take a head start toward Lake Ellen. They never caught up with him and never saw him again. Carl was described as a very experienced climber, so it was unlikely that he had fallen. The Siskiyou County Sheriff's Department immediately set out on a search with the National Guard, covering the air using an infrared helicopter, and the U.S. Rangers and volunteers covered the ground on foot and skis. No trace of Carl was ever found. Number 4. In the year 2000, a 70-year-old woman named Rosemary Kunst vanished from Spirit Lake in the Marble Mountains Wilderness area. She was looking for a spiritual experience in the mountains and wanted to be able to connect with her deceased husband, who was killed in a tragic car accident 2 years earlier. Rosemary was attending a week-long sacred site spiritual retreat with a small group of people, sponsored by the Earth Circle organization in Wairega, California. Every year, the Earth Circle organization trekked to the remote location of Spirit Lake in the Marble Mountains Wilderness area just west of Mount Shasta, California, for the purposes of a spiritual retreat. On August 18th, Rosemary decided that she wanted to stay behind and enjoy the beauty of Spirit Lake. So the group left and was gone for most of the day. That evening, they arrived back to the camp and realized that Rosemary was gone. After an hour of trying to locate the missing woman, the group became concerned and a decision was made to contact the Siskiyou County search and rescue efforts. Rescue teams, helicopters, and search dogs were called in to explore the steep, rocky terrain surrounding the lake. But after a week of combing over the area, the efforts of more than 150 search personnel came up empty. She was never seen again. Number 3. On Friday, June 13, 2014, 34-year-old California firefighter Mike Herdman vanished with his dog in the Los Padres National Forest in California. He was camping with a friend when he ran off, chasing his dog downhill toward a stream. His friend searched for hours, then had to hike 2 days out of the wilderness to find help. The area that was searched is 2 times the size of the Grand Canyon. On June 19th, the firefighter's dog was found alive. Herdman, however, was found dead on June 27th. Like others who have disappeared into national forests, Herdman was found at approximately 1,200 feet above the river bottom where he had chased his dog the day he disappeared. When his remains were discovered, authorities were astonished to find him shoeless. Rescue crews spent nearly 5,000 man-hours searching and covered 50 square miles on foot and on horseback, as well as by air, including the use of 2 drones. The sheriff stated it was unimaginable that a shoeless person could have traversed so far in such rough terrain. Number 2. On June 9th, 1988, Cheryl Brewer and 3 other friends went hiking at the Whispering Pines Trail in San Bernardino National Forest. They planned on hiking a few hours in before turning around to hike back. By the time they had turned around, the sun was already beginning to set, so the girls began hiking back as quickly as they could before nightfall when they noticed Cheryl was missing. She was last seen in the back of the group shortly after they turned to head back. The girls backtracked to look for her, but she was gone. So once they reached the trailhead hours later, they notified park officials and a search and rescue team was called in. For several days, they combed through the several hundred square miles of wilderness surrounding the trail, but no trace of her was ever found. Number 1. On November 11th, 1997, 27-year-old Chet Hansen was reported missing from Deer Creek Trailhead at the Mount Rainier National Park in Washington. National Park personnel established that Chet was a strong hiker who went into the backcountry to photograph a lake that he had been to many times before. He was carrying a large camera and tripod in his effort to capture the winter near Rainier. He had been to this area many times before and knew it well. He was very fit, young, and healthy. He had to be in great shape to hike the region with a camera and gear weighing in at over 40 pounds. When people are lost in the wilderness and start to become tired and weak, they start dropping items and leaving stuff behind, but nothing of substantial value was ever found belonging to Chet. Bloodhounds and canines could not locate Chet, so cadaver dogs were brought in, yet they failed to pick up any scent of him either. The odor of a body as it disintegrates is something that travels for several miles, but the dogs could not pick up any scents and eventually gave up. The region around Mount Rainier is where many people have vanished over the century. It has one of the largest clusters of missing people in our national parks. Well, there you have it. It's pretty obvious that something strange is happening to these people in our national and state parks. If you've watched my other videos, I go on to explain some of the more popular explanations for these kinds of missing person cases. What do you think's happening to these people? I'd like to hear from you. Thanks for watching and subscribe for more videos.